3 weeks after Jenna told me she was pregnant. I found a parking receipt from a hotel in Banff, tucked inside her purse. Dated from a weekend she swore she'd spent in Edmonton visiting her sister. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe the company had switched conference locations last minute. Maybe she'd grabbed someone else's bag by mistake at the gym. I stood in our kitchen in Calgary, the receipt warm from being folded against my palm, inventing every possible story that didn't end with my wife and my best friend in the same room with a king bed and room service. Then my mother called that night and said the kind of thing no mother should ever say to her son. Mason, even if it's not yours, that baby still needs it. Who shows up? That was the moment I understood my parents already knew. My name is Mason Whitfield. I'm 32, and until that winter, I genuinely believed I understood what disappointment felt like. I thought disappointment was what's watching the Flames blow a third period lead. I thought it was my dad missing my promotion dinner because Tyler needed a hand moving a fridge. I thought it was my mother forgiving Tyler for the 100th dent in someone else's car, and still acting shocked when there was 101st. I did not know disappointment could have a heartbeat. I did not know it could sit across the table from me, holding its own stomach, crying, while everyone I loved asked me to put my name on a birth certificate. So, nobody else had to feel ashamed. Tyler Brandt had been my best friend since the 4th grade, and somewhere along the way, he'd also become the unofficial favorite son in my own family. Which is a strange sentence to type, but an even stranger thing to live through. His mom and mine had been close. Since before either of us was born, 2 nurses who worked the same floor at Foothills Medical Center. And somewhere in there Tyler just got folded into our family. Like a cousin nobody formally adopted. He came to every Thanksgiving. He had a key to my parents' house in Bridgeland before I did. When Tyler dropped out of his business diploma at SAIT, my dad called it finding his own path. When Tyler crashed his dad's truck on the Deerfoot doing 90, my mother said boys make mistakes. When Tyler got someone pregnant at 23 and didn't speak to the kid for 3 years until child support garnished his wages, my mother said, he just wasn't ready. That's all. He's growing up now. When I missed my mother's birthday call because I was finishing a project deadline at 11 at night, she cried to my aunt for 2 days about how cold I'd become. That was the family weather system. Tyler got Grace. I got the bill. I met Jenna when I was 26, at a mutual friend's barbecue out in Cochrane. She had this laugh that made strangers 2 picnic tables over turn around and smile without knowing why. She worked as a dental hygienist. Steady hours, steady paycheck, the kind of person who actually used her TFSA the way it was meant to be used instead of treating it like a savings account with extra steps. I was project managing commercial builds, which sounds glamorous, until you're standing on a half-finished parkade in February arguing with a concrete supplier about a delivery window, while your fingers go numb inside your gloves. Jenna made the rest of it feel lighter. She labeled the leftovers in the fridge with dates. She listened to me complain about work the way you listen when you actually care. Not the way you listen while waiting for your turn to talk. When I told her about the Tyler situation, about how my family treated him like the son who could do no wrong, and me like the son who simply existed to clean up after him, she got it faster than almost anyone ever had. So he lights the fires, she said once, stirring a pot of chili on our old apartment stove. And your parents just hand you the extinguisher and call it bonding. I laughed because it was so exactly true it almost hurt. I should have remembered that line later. I should have remembered that Jenna understood precisely what kind of family she was marrying into, and married into it anyway. We got married 2 years after that. A small ceremony out at a vineyard-style venue near Okokotoks, because apparently you can grow grapes in southern Alberta now if you're stubborn enough. Tyler was my best man. His speech was somehow half compliment, half insult, the way his speeches always were. Mason's always been the responsible one, he said, raising his glass. Took him long enough to find someone patient enough to deal with that. Everybody laughed. I smiled, because that's what I'd been trained since childhood to do. Jenna squeezed my hand under the head table. Later in the hotel room she said, that was kind of a dig. I shrugged. That's just Tyler. She looked at me a long moment and said, that shouldn't be an excuse for everything, you know. For the first few years I thought we were fine. Not perfect, nobody's marriage is, but fine. We argued about the usual things. How much I worked, how often my family treated our weekends like public property. Jenna said, I went quiet when I was stressed instead of talking it through. She wasn't wrong. I said she needed constant reassurance in a way that sometimes felt like a test I couldn't pass. I wasn't wrong either, but underneath it, I believed we loved each other. I really did. Then, around year 4, something shifted. It started small the way these things always do. Jenna started keeping her phone face down on the counter. She took calls standing in the garage. Which struck me as strange. Because nobody chooses to stand next to a chest freezer and a stack of winter tires, unless they're hiding something or punishing themselves. She bought a new perfume and said it was on sale. She started picking up extra shifts at the clinic, except they weren't always at the clinic. Something I only pieced together later. And Tyler, who'd always orbited our lives at a comfortable distance, suddenly became a fixture. He dropped by unannounced. He texted Jenna directly about logistics for my mom's birthday. He offered to help her with things she'd never once asked him to help with. Picking up her car from the shop, carrying boxes when she switched offices. Fixing a squeak in her driver's door that she'd only mentioned once, in passing. At a family dinner, I noticed. Of course I noticed. Noticing something and admitting what it means, though, are two entirely different muscles, and I hadn't built the second one yet. Nobody wants to believe the worst possibility in the room is the one standing closest to them. When Jenna told me she was pregnant, every red flag I'd been quietly cataloging disappeared for about 5 whole minutes. She told me on a Wednesday night. I'd come home late, smelling like rebar and Tim Hortons coffee, and she was sitting at our kitchen table with a small gift bag in front of her. I thought it was something she'd picked up at Chinook Center. Inside was a pregnancy test wrapped in tissue paper, the little display window glowing positive. My whole body went still. She started crying, and I came around the table and held her, and I remember saying, "We're going to be parents." Like I was trying the sentence on for size. For that minute I was happy. Genuinely happy. Then she pulled back, and there was something in her face I couldn't quite name. Not joy exactly. Not fear exactly either. Something heavier than both. I told myself it was hormones, the shock of a huge life change, all the things men tell themselves when they're trying very hard not to see what's right in front of their faces. That Sunday we told my parents at their house. My mother, Karen, actually screamed. She pulled Jenna into a hug and cried into her shoulder. My father, Greg, slapped me on the back hard enough to spill his coffee and said, "Well, it's about time." Tyler was sitting across the table. He went pale for exactly 1 second, then smiled too wide and raised his can of Pilsner. "To Mason and Jenna," he said. "Guess the responsible guy finally did something fun for once." Everyone laughed again. I looked at Jenna. She was staring at her plate. I looked at my mother. She wasn't looking at me at all. She was looking at Tyler. That should have changed everything right there. But happiness makes you stupid, and I wanted a family of my own badly enough that I ignored the alarm bell going off somewhere behind my ribs. Over the next few weeks my mother got strangely protective of Jenna, almost suspiciously so. If I asked why Jenna seemed exhausted, my mom said, "Don't stress her out, Mason." If I suggested we book a prenatal appointment together, she said, "Let her breathe a little." If I joked about baby names at dinner, Tyler went quiet and my mother changed the subject fast enough to give herself whiplash. One night I said, half joking, "If it's a boy I hope he gets Jenna's patience and not my widow's peak." Tyler choked on his beer. Jenna stood up and said she needed the washroom. My mother said, "Pregnancy nausea, it can hit out of nowhere." I remember thinking, very clearly that was not nausea, but I waited anyway, because waiting was what I'd always done. Give people room, and eventually they'll tell you the truth themselves. Nobody ever warns you that if you give a liar enough room, they'll use it to build a bigger lie. The Banff receipt turned up on a Thursday. Jenna's car had started making a clicking sound when she braked, so I told her I'd drop it at the shop on McLeod Trail before work the next morning. I was digging through her glove box for the insurance pink slip, when the receipt slid out from behind a stack of Tim Hortons napkins. One night. King Room, a boutique place just off Banff Avenue. Paid in full by Tyler Brandt. Dated 6 weeks before Jenna told me she was pregnant. I sat in the driver's seat with the engine off and just stared at that date for a long time. My hands didn't shake at first, which surprised me. I'd always assumed betrayal would feel explosive. It didn't. It felt quiet, like someone had slowly let all the air out of the world around me. I called the hotel that afternoon from the parking lot, keeping my voice flat and businesslike. I told the front desk I was confirming details for a corporate expense reimbursement. The woman on the line wouldn't tell me much, but she did confirm the room had been booked under Tyler Brandt. "Was it just the one guest?" I asked. "I'm not able to disclose that information, sir." That was enough. That told me everything the silence was protecting. I waited until Jenna got home from a late shift. She came in carrying a co-op bag, already mid-sentence about how much the price of eggs had gone up again, like the world was perfectly normal. I'd set the receipt on the kitchen island. She stopped talking the second she saw it. The grocery bag slipped slightly in her grip. "What's this?" I said. It wasn't really a question. Her face changed so fast I almost felt sorry for her. "Almost, Mason," she said. "Don't say my name like that. Just answer me." She set the groceries down slowly, like sudden movements might break something. "Tyler booked that for a work thing. I think he was meeting a client up there. Then why was it in your glove box?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" "No." I laughed once and it didn't sound like my voice at all. "Jenna, I'm going to ask you one more time. Why was Tyler's hotel receipt in your car?" She started crying. And that's when I knew. Not suspected, knew all the way down. I sat down hard because my legs had stopped being reliable. "How long?" I said. She put her hand over her mouth. How long, Jenna, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I closed my eyes. That sentence should be illegal. Nobody ever says that about something innocent. It happened more than once. I said. Not a question, anymore. She didn't answer, and that silence answered for her. I stood and walked into the living room, not because I needed space, but because I was afraid of what might come out of my mouth if I stayed close to her. She followed, crying harder, the words spilling out about a fight we'd had over my work hours, about feeling alone, about how Tyler had been there, how he listened, how he made her feel wanted. Every sentence landed like a slap. Tyler listened. Tyler comforted. Tyler was there. My best friend had spent his entire life being handed things that should have been mine, and somehow he'd convinced my own wife he was the wounded party. I asked the only question that actually mattered. Is the baby mine? Jenna froze. Not hesitated. Froze completely still, like a video buffering. Jenna. She sobbed out 3 words. I don't know. Those 3 words ended my marriage more completely than the affair itself had. I grabbed my keys off the counter. She stepped in front of the door. Mace, please don't leave. I looked at her stomach, then at her face. I can't be in this house right now. I wanted to tell you, she said. When? Before the baby came? After? When I was signing the birth certificate at the hospital. Her face crumpled. Your mother told me not to. I went very still. What? She immediately looked like she regretted the words the second they were out. What did my mother tell you? I said again. She wiped her face with both hands. Karen found out. About a month ago. The floor seemed to tilt under me. My mother knew. A month. My mother had known for a full month that my wife had slept with my best friend. That there was a real chance the baby growing inside her wasn't mine. And she had sat across from me, at Sunday dinner, asking if we'd picked out crib colors yet. What did she say to you? I asked. Jenna looked at the floor. She said we shouldn't tell you until we were sure. That it would be easier once the baby was here. That once you held him, things would probably just sort themselves out. That was the moment my pain turned into something colder. Something with edges. My wife had betrayed me. My best friend had betrayed me. But my mother had made a plan. That night I slept in my truck in the parking lot of a 24-hour Petro-Canada. Because every hotel in the city felt unbearable. I didn't sleep much. At 3:12 in the morning, Tyler texted me. Heard you and Jenna had a fight. Don't do anything dumb, man. I stared at it until the screen blurred. Then I typed back, you slept with my wife. The typing bubble came and went. Finally, it's complicated. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and laughed hard enough to scare myself a little. Complicated. That's the word cowards reach for when the truth is simple and ugly, and they don't want to say it out loud. The next morning, I drove straight to my parents' place. My mother opened the door in her bathrobe, already pale, which told me Jenna had called ahead. My dad stood behind her in the front hall. Tyler's Jeep was already in the driveway. Of course it was, the favorite son running home to the only place that would always take his side. I walked past my mother without hugging her. Tyler was in the kitchen, drinking coffee out of my dad's mug, the one with the Oilers logo my dad got as a joke gift 20 years ago and somehow kept forever. Get up, I said. My mother gasped. Mason, don't start. I turned to her. You knew. Her lips trembled. Please, just sit down and we can talk about this calmly. No, my dad's voice came from the hallway. Watch your tone in this house. That was my father in a nutshell. His son's entire marriage was on fire and he was worried about volume control. I looked at Tyler. How many times? He set the mug down slowly. You need to calm down, man. How many times? He sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. It wasn't like a whole thing. My mother said, Tyler made a mistake. I turned to her, slower this time. She started crying. He's sorry, Mason. He wasn't sorry. He looked irritated that consequences had shown up before he'd finished his coffee. My dad said, this is hard on everyone. No, Dad. It's hard on me. It's inconvenient for everyone else. Then my mother said the line that told me she'd already chosen sides before I even walked through the door. Mason, whatever happened, Jenna is pregnant. That baby needs stability. I stared at her. Whose baby is it? Nobody answered. I looked at Tyler. Is it yours? He looked away. My dad cleared his throat. We don't know that for sure. I felt my whole face go numb. We don't know that, I repeated. My mother stepped closer. Biology isn't everything, you know. There it was. The family motto, rewritten on the spot, to suit the occasion. Biology was everything when Tyler needed loyalty he hadn't earned. Biology was everything when my mother wanted him at every holiday like blood. But the second I might actually be the one expected to raise his kid, biology stopped mattering. You want me to raise his baby, I said. My mother cried harder. I want you to think about the child. No, you want me to think about Tyler. My father's jaw went tight. I'm asking you to be a man about this. I looked at him and smiled without a single ounce of humor in it. No, Dad, you're asking me to be a doormat with a birth certificate. Tyler stood up. You always do this. Do what? Act like you're better than everybody. I actually laughed. You slept with my pregnant wife and I'm the one acting superior? His face went red. She came to me because you're cold, man. You think paying the mortgage and fixing the furnace makes you a husband? That landed, because the worst lies always carry a sliver of truth in them. I wasn't perfect. I worked too much. I shut down under stress. I could be hard to reach some nights. But I had never once betrayed her, and I had never reached into his life and called it complicated to avoid saying the real word. My mother stepped between us. Enough. This family can't survive you two tearing each other apart. This family survived because I kept swallowing whatever Tyler did. I said, that's the only reason it's still standing. She whispered, please don't destroy everything. I picked my keys back up. You already did that part. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. The next stretch of days was lawyers, phone calls, and a nausea that had nothing to do with anyone being pregnant. I found a family lawyer named Priya Anand through a coworker, a woman, with a kind of calm, level voice that comes from watching hundreds of people discover that love and legal liability live in two very different rooms. She listened without interrupting once. Then she said, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything verbally. And do not put your name on that birth certificate until paternity is confirmed, full stop. Can I get a DNA test? I asked. Yes. You can't force Tyler to take one outright. But if Jenna agrees to prenatal paternity testing, that gets you your answer well before the birth. Jenna agreed. That actually surprised me. Maybe she was tired of carrying the lie around. Maybe she already knew the truth was coming whether she fought it or not. We met at a private clinic off 17th Avenue on a gray Tuesday morning. She looked wrung out. In the waiting room she tried to talk to me. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. I looked at the carpet. That doesn't really help anything. I know. No, Jenna. I really don't think you do. Because wanting didn't stop you from doing it. She pressed her hands together in her lap. Tyler made me feel like you didn't care anymore. I looked at her then. And you believed him. Because that was easier than just talking to me. She started crying quietly. I was so tired of the crying by that point. It had stopped doing anything to me at all. The results came back the following Friday. Priya called me into her office. And I knew from her expression before she even slid the paper across the desk. Probability of paternity, Mason Whitfield, 0.1%. Well within the standard exclusion range used by the lab. The baby wasn't mine. It was Tyler's. The office went very quiet. Priya said something about next steps, protecting myself legally. What Alberta family law actually required of me, communication boundaries going forward. I heard maybe half of it. I kept staring at that number. It was strange. I'd expected the result to destroy me. Instead it cleared something out. For weeks I'd been trapped in maybe. Maybe the baby was mine. Maybe the marriage could be saved. Maybe my parents were just confused and scared. Maybe there was a version of this where I could still be a decent man, and not have to walk away from everything. But a result that conclusive leaves no room for any of that fantasy. It's clean and it's cruel in equal measure. I drove home, sat in the driveway with the engine off, and let myself cry for the first time since the receipt. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough to admit something inside me had actually died. Then I wiped my face, went inside, and started making photocopies at the kitchen table. The hotel receipt, the lab results, Tyler's texts, Jenna's written admission. Screenshots he'd finally forwarded to me without me even asking. And one text from my mother to Jenna that turned my stomach in a way nothing else had. Do not tell Mason anything until we have a plan. He's too emotional right now. Once the baby's here things will calm down. Too emotional. My mother had mistaken my right to know the truth about my own life for a mood swing she needed to manage. 2 days later she organized a family dinner. Organized. A group text went out, Sunday dinner at 5. We need to come together and figure out how to support Jenna and the baby. Support Jenna and the baby. Not support me. Not address what Tyler had actually done. Just smooth over the situation they'd helped build. I nearly ignored it entirely. Then my uncle Walter called. Walter was my dad's younger brother. The only person in that family tree who seemed to have been born with an actual spine. Your mother's telling people you're abandoning Jenna while she's pregnant. He said. I closed my eyes. Of course she is. She also said Tyler's in a real dark place over all this conflict between you two. I laughed. Tyler's in a dark place because he got caught. Walter was quiet a second. You want me there Sunday? Yeah, I said. I do. That was the moment I decided to stop defending myself in private conversations nobody else would ever hear about. On Sunday I walked into my parents' house in Bridgeland. With a manila folder tucked under my arm. Same dining table, same wall of framed family photos, same smell of roast chicken cooked up, everything nobody wanted to say out loud. Jenna sat near the window, pale and silent. Tyler leaned against the counter with his arms crossed, doing his best impression of a man who hadn't done anything wrong. My mother fluttered around the kitchen like a nervous hostess at a funeral she'd caused herself. My dad stood by the fireplace. Uncle Walter and his wife were there, plus my cousin Brent and a couple of relatives my mother had clearly invited as an audience, hoping a full table would pressure me into backing down. That was fine by me. An audience cuts both ways. My mother started talking before I'd even sat down. Mason, thank you for coming. I know this has been hard. Hard. Like a flight delay. Like a bad dentist appointment. I set the folder on the table. My mother looked at it and swallowed. She knew exactly what was in it. Jenna stared down at her hands. Tyler smirked. Just slightly. And that smirk was the thing that finally killed any hesitation I had left. My mother kept going. We all love you. We love Jenna too. And there's a baby coming who hasn't done anything wrong. I just think we need to focus on healing instead of blame. I nodded slowly. Healing instead of blame? Yes, she said, encouraged by my nodding. Exactly that. I looked around the table. Does everyone here actually know why I moved out? My aunt shifted in her chair. Brent said, we just heard there were some problems. Tyler said, Mason's having a hard time accepting how things are. I smiled at him. Accepting things. Sure, that's one way to put it. My dad said, this isn't the time to attack people. No, Dad, this is exactly the time. I opened the folder. This is the receipt I found in Jenna's car. Tyler paid for the room. I set Jenna's written confession beside it. This is Jenna's own statement admitting the affair. My aunt actually gasped. Uncle Walter just closed his eyes, like he'd already guessed and hated hearing it confirmed out loud. Tyler pushed off the counter. You're seriously doing this right now? You did this, I said. I just brought the paperwork. I placed the lab results in the center of the table, and this is the paternity test. I'm not the father. Nobody moved for a second. My mother started crying. Tyler's face went completely blank. Jenna covered her mouth with both hands. Brent muttered, Jesus man. My dad picked the paper up, read it, and set it back down like it had burned him. I looked at Tyler. Congratulations, it's yours, he exploded. You don't know that for sure. Those tests get it wrong sometimes. I'd already had Priya warn me he'd say something like that. I pulled out the second document. Non-invasive prenatal paternity test. Accredited lab. Full chain of custody. Confirmed by Jenna's own OB. But sure, if you'd like another one after the birth, my lawyer would be thrilled to set that up. He shut his mouth. My mother sobbed. Mason, please, not in front of everyone. I turned to her. You're the one who invited everyone. I wanted support. No. You wanted pressure. My dad said, enough. This is still a private family matter. I almost laughed. It stopped being private the second Mom started telling people I was abandoning my pregnant wife. My aunt looked over at my mother. Karen? My mother cried harder. I was trying to protect the baby. Uncle Walter spoke for the first time all evening. No, Karen. You were protecting Tyler. You've been protecting Tyler since he was 12 years old. The whole room went still. My mother looked at him like he'd slapped her across the face. Tyler snapped. Stay out of it, Walter. Walter stood up slowly. You slept with your best friend's pregnant wife. You don't get to hand out seating charts at this table. That almost made me smile. Almost. My dad rubbed his forehead. Mason, what do you actually want? I looked at him. That's the first decent question anyone's asked me all night. The room went quiet again. I want a divorce. I want my name nowhere near that birth certificate. I want any communication from Jenna to go through lawyers, unless it's strictly necessary. I want Tyler to stop texting me entirely. I want Mom to stop rewriting what happened here, and I want everyone at this table to understand I am not raising my best friend's baby just so this family can keep pretending he didn't do this. My mother whispered. But that child is innocent. I looked at her. Yes, he is. And see, because he's innocent, he deserves the truth from day one. Not a fake father. Not a fake marriage. Not a whole family too scared to say Tyler's name out loud for what it actually did. Jenna started crying openly. I'm sorry, she said. I believe you, I said. Her eyes widened a little at that. But sorry doesn't rebuild what you chose to wreck. Tyler muttered, you're enjoying this. I turned to him. No, that's the difference between us. You enjoyed taking what wasn't yours. I'm not enjoying giving her back. That one actually landed good. My mother put both hands flat on the table. Mason, if you walk away, that baby grows up without a real father. I looked straight at Tyler. Then tell his real father to grow up. He said nothing. My father's face went hard. Don't expect us to choose between our son and Tyler. I picked the folder back up. You already did. A long time ago. I walked out while my mother called my name through the screen door. This time I didn't turn around. The fallout came. Fast. My aunt called that night, and apologized, said she'd believed my mother's version of things. And felt ashamed once she'd seen the actual paperwork. Uncle Walter sent one text. Proud of you tonight. That was hell, but you stood up straight through the whole thing. I saved that one. Tyler's girlfriend at the time found out 2 days later and left him on the spot. Apparently she'd believed he was just dealing with family stress. Not fathering a child with his best friend's wife. My mother sent 11 texts in one night. You embarrassed your father. Tyler is in a dark place. Jen isn't eating. Think about the baby. The last one said, you are not the man I raised if you can turn your back on a child. I replied once. I'm exactly the man you raised. I'm the one who finally stopped cleaning up after Tyler. Then I blocked the number. The divorce was ugly in places but quieter than I expected overall. Jenna didn't fight me on much. I think some part of her understood there wasn't really anything left worth fighting for. She moved in with her sister Holly out in Airdrie. Tyler didn't move in with her. That told me everything I needed to know about what kind of father my mother had been trying to volunteer me to be in his place. A month later, Jenna asked to meet at a coffee shop on 4th Street. I almost said no. Priya told me closure can be useful as long as you keep your wallet and your hearts in separate pockets, so I went. Jenna looked different. Smaller somehow, not physically, just stripped of the confidence I remembered from when I married her. Tyler doesn't want to be involved, she said. I stirred my coffee, even though I hadn't put anything in it. Shocking. She flinched. I deserve that. No. You deserve honesty. Sarcasm's just what I've got left on short notice. She nodded, and for a while neither of us said anything. Then she said, your mother told me you'd come around eventually. I laughed quietly. My mother's mistaken obedience for love my whole life. She wiped her cheek. I don't expect you to forgive me. Good. She looked down at the table. But I am sorry, Mason. Not because everything fell apart. Because of the choices I made. I lied to you for months. I let Tyler make me feel special, and I used the distance between as an excuse instead of just talking to you like an adult. That was the first real apology she'd given me. No hormones blamed. No loneliness used as a shield, just ownership. I appreciated it. It didn't make me want her back. I hope you turn out to be a better mother than you were a wife, I told her. Her face crumpled, but she nodded. I hope so too. Walking out of that coffee shop, I didn't feel free exactly. People love saying the truth sets you free. Sometimes the truth just unlocks the cell door, and you still have to crawl out on your own with 2 broken knees. But it was something. It was a start. 2 months after that, the baby was born, a boy. Jenna named him Theo. She sent me one message through Holly. He's healthy, I thought you should know. I stared at the photo attached for a long time. Tiny, red-faced, wrapped in a hospital blanket with little blue stripes. He looked innocent, because he was. That was the hardest part of the whole thing. My anger had plenty of places to go. Jenna, Tyler, my parents, but not him, never him. I didn't hate that baby. I hated the lie everyone had tried to build a life around him with. My mother got hold of a photo of Theo from somewhere, and sent it to me 2 days later with the message. Look at him and tell me you feel nothing. I replied. I feel sad that every adult around him failed him before he was even born. That doesn't make me his father. Then I blocked that number too. A week after Theo's birth, Tyler posted some vague quote online about people who walk away when life gets complicated. For once I didn't bother responding. Uncle Walter did, in the comments. Some people confuse complicated with consequences. The post came down within the hour. My father showed up at my apartment about 3 months after the divorce finalized. I almost didn't open the door. He looked older, smaller somehow. Nothing like the man who used to fill up every room he walked into without saying a word. Can we talk? He said. I stood in the doorway. Tyler's not here, so? I guess you're free to speak honestly for once. He winced. I didn't invite him in. Your mother and I are separated, he said. That actually surprised me. I didn't say anything. She still thinks if everyone just sits down together, this can all be fixed. Can it? I asked. He looked at the ground. I don't know. That was maybe the most honest sentence my father had said to me in my entire life. He took a breath. I failed you, Mason. I wanted that sentence to feel better than it did. But when someone finally tells you what you needed to hear years too late, it doesn't always heal anything. Sometimes, it just reminds you how long you were bleeding without anyone noticing. Yeah, I said. He nodded. I kept thinking protecting Tyler would keep the whole family together. All it did was teach him. There'd always be someone else around to clean up after him. I leaned against the doorframe. Why tell me all this now? Because Theo's here and Tyler still won't show up for him. Your mother's exhausted. Jenna's alone. And I finally realized you were right the whole time. We weren't asking you to be his father because that baby needed you specifically. We were asking because Tyler wasn't going to do it. There it was. The truth, late but real. I'm not coming back, I said. I know. I'm not fixing this for everyone. I know. I'm not meeting Theo just to make people feel better about themselves. My father nodded. I know. For a second he looked like he might actually cry. He didn't. I'm my father's son in some unfortunate ways too, I guess. I'm sorry, Mason, he said. I believe you, I told him. His eyes lifted a little at that. Then I added, but I don't trust you, not yet. He accepted that without arguing, which mattered more than he'd probably realized. My mother never got there. She sent letters, gift cards, old childhood photos, one ornament from a Christmas tree we'd had when I was 7. She wrote that she missed her boys. Like Tyler and I were equal victims of some storm nobody had actually caused. I sent every package back unopened. Not out of cruelty. Out of survival. Tyler eventually moved out to Vancouver. Which sounded about right. A fresh city full of people who hadn't yet heard his greatest hits. Jenna raises Theo mostly on her own now. With help from Holly, and occasionally my dad. From what I hear, Tyler sends money only when the maintenance enforcement program forces his hand. My mother still believes I should be involved somehow. She tells people I'm punishing an innocent child. That sentence used to bother me a lot. Now I understand exactly what it actually means. She's angry because I won't let an innocent kid become the rope they keep trying to use to drag me back into a burning house. I've rebuilt things slowly. Not dramatically. No new condo downtown, no revenge story, no scene where I show up somewhere looking sharp and everyone gasps because I look successful now. I started seeing a counselor through my work's benefits plan. I moved to a smaller place near Marta Loop. I learned to actually cook instead of microwaving everything. I went ice fishing with Uncle Walter, twice out near Sylvan Lake, and caught absolutely nothing both times, which he said was perfect, because it gave us more time to complain about everything in peace. I started dating again after about a year, carefully, slowly. The first time a woman asked about my family over coffee, I gave her the short version. She blinked at me and said, "That's not a family tree, that's a crime scene with birthdays." I actually laughed properly for the first time in a long time. Sometimes I still think about Theo. I wonder what he'll be told when he's older. I wonder if Tyler will ever grow into the father my mother insisted that baby needed so badly. I wonder if Jenna will tell him the truth eventually. I hope she does, not because I want him to suffer through it, but because kids can feel a lie, sitting in a house, long before they have the words to name it. And if there's one thing my own family taught me, it's that silence doesn't protect children. It just trains them to doubt themselves later. So I guess the question people keep asking me is whether I was wrong to divorce my pregnant wife and refuse to raise the child my own parents wanted me to call my own. Maybe some people think I should have stayed. They'll say the baby was innocent. They're right about that part, he was. But his innocence never made his existence my responsibility. My parents kept telling me that baby needed a father. Maybe he did. But what he needed even more than that was the truth. Told from the very beginning. By people brave enough to say it. And I was done being the man my family kept reaching for every single time. Someone else made a mess too ugly to clean up on their own.